As soon as it was done, it was like, okay, the first thing we do, we send it to Ridley, get to Ridley to watch it, and I'll drive to where he is and sit down at a table and take it, and take whatever it is, the good, the bad, and but I was super happy, obviously, that you enjoy the movie. That you said it's great, and what can I say? That was something that
I actually
always
said
stayed
you got
with
a
me
huge
forever.
you got a huge movie here.
Run.
We had a Zoom call because I think it was still pandemic was around, and when this project started to come about, like we had a Zoom call, and what was great about it, really, I mean, so obviously, I remember telling people on the phone call, I was like, I've been doing this enough and met a lot of people enough that I don't really get nervous about, like, oh my God. And that was the first time in many years when I was really nervous. I was like, well, obviously you're a master of this craft, and for me, it's one of the best privileges ever to meet the masters, and mostly because I want to learn and I want to be better at what I do, and those are the few chances when you have that. And I remember, like, even off the bat, like when I told you basically what the story was about, you could tell right away what worked and what didn't, what was going to be effective. And now looking back, having made the movie, you were completely right. Like, you were like, this story, that's great. The David, the Andy, Rain, that's what the movie's about. That's what you should tap into.
Don't go off a tangent.
Yeah, and you were like, the monster is great, but people have seen it many times. Don't depend on it just being the whole thing. Build other things, and it was great because you really help us focus it right away. Right?
Density is wonderful, but then you're putting it in a certain kind of category. So what you're doing is here, high end, scare the hell out of everyone. So the more it connects, and you don't work against your own engine. You have an engine, don't lose it.
No, absolutely, yeah. And that's why that's why you've been so helpful with in every stage of this, and it's been a privilege to be able to show you the script, the story, the movie.
The key to is enjoy. I watch everything, and so somebody's going to like this, because I caught a film last night done in 2020 called Emma, which is Jane Austen. Watch it. It's fantastic.
And it's all a joy, I believe,
Yeah, fantastic. And the director is called Autumn de Line. It's really good.
That's good.
So, and I like more than horror movies.
You sure you want to do this?
Watching anyone's version of something I've already done, because I've already had to deal with that on Blade Runner. There's always trepidation, but I'd seen 3 of his films prior to that, so I thought Alien needed a really fresh view. And what I liked was the fact that he cast such young people. So that was a really valuable asset to what he was doing and what I knew he could do. So I was kind of excited.
Things haunting us.
Open the door, come on!
My first memory of Alien is not actually watching the movie. It was on television in Uruguay, where I'm from, and it was called Alien, the Eighth Passenger. You can call it in many territories, which already the title
had to be in France.
Yeah, it was the same.
The French complicate everything, sorry.
In Uruguay as well. You try to explain people, but I thought it was a very effective, very terrifying. It put horror in your heart right away, like, who is the 8th passenger in this ship? But it was actually kind of a featurette that showed some images of the movie and kind of explained something about the monster. Yeah. And I remember as a kid watching that already and being terrified by the size of it and trying to understand what it was. And then they showed, this was in the news at night, just talking about the movie. And I just saw the first kill of the film that just played that, right? So I wasn't supposed to be watching that movie, just too young to watch that. And I remember being completely terrified, but like it triggered my imagination in such a way because you weren't showing me what it was. You just see the chains. I remember thinking the chains was part of the monster at some point because you see the sounds of the chains there.
Oh, Harry gets,
Yeah, when Harry gets it, he looks up and you don't really see it. He's down there. He comes down behind him on the wall. It's still a super vivid memory of watching that and understanding that some sort of, dark devil took this guy, and I never knew what it was. And I could only imagine on the face of the cat, the way the cat was just staring at it in such a cold way. And that stayed with me forever, right? So it was just, I wasn't even watching the whole, I just watched that scene in a vacuum on its own on the news at night because they were talking about it at some point. It was just, and I will always stay with me.
The cat was great.
The cat was fantastic.
So was Harry. So the cat went, what?
Absolutely.
Cat
But I
goes,
was asking you earlier, like how those decisions come about? I mean, in the preparation for this movie, I remember telling the crew at some point, my team, VFX team at some point, they were saying, well, we don't have enough money to do this and that and this. And I was like, well, I'm sure, but that's good. I was like, let's not get money for it because
use the hose and water.
And it makes you come up with great ideas like that one. That just, if you had it,
say, what
you could
was
see the monster up there.
Humidity.
Yeah.
All ships have humidity, for God's sake.
Exactly. Well, that is something I learned. I didn't do this before, and after working with you on this one, and I did it on this one a lot, it's like, I'll tell you when they ask me about something, why is this? Why is that? I tell what Ridley would say, because it looks great. And that should be enough of an answer sometimes, particularly in space, particularly in the future, particularly in places that you cannot argue that doesn't exist.
Well, you know, the lines came up from a guy called Steve Frankfurt and Richard Goldberg, who had a company. In space, no one can hear you scream.
Oh, yeah.
They came up with the poster, and they came up with the classical titles.
What's happening?
Something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
There's just something in the water.
I don't know about you, but for me, like, you know, you work on these movies and then it's all about the day you're finally going to share it with an audience, right? So my understanding is like May 25th, and it's 1979, and you're in the Seattle Film Festival.
Yeah, concerning, because it was a different time. And I think at that moment in time, there'd been 3 really good horror films.
Yeah.
There was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Omen, and The Exorcist. Number 1.
Yeah.
They were perfect engines of fear and terror, right? You're seeing things you hadn't seen before, or put under stress to see what you hadn't seen before. And so by then, and Laddie had had a bad experience the year before. We're in St. Louis, final test. The year before, he'd tested something about a man coming from Vietnam trying to settle back into normal life. Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy's major, right? And one of the best actors, I think, we have.
Yeah.
And he was the soldier coming back from the war, probably trying to settle down to a job in the supermarket. And the violent section in it was so violent that the audience reacted, and badly. So the executives had to get out the theater fast. So Laddie, oh no, are you kidding? Somebody ripped Laddie's shirt. So he's saying, the film's too violent, I said, how can it be too violent? So I'm arguing, it can't be too violent. We're doing a horror movie. And we got this in Seattle, in St. Louis. And Laddie came crouched back, and we're approaching the scene in the kitchen.
And this is a screen test, or is it proper?
500 people.
It's a proper premiere, like when it's
Not premiere, but big, major.
Yeah.
And Laddie says to me, it's too loud, it's too frank. He said, it's my movie, I'm going to have it. He goes back. The thing comes out the chest, and there's an eruption in the theater of outrage.
Can you imagine?
Outrage. And I got a little worried, so I got up and snuck out and met him in the bar later. So I was a bit worried about the outrage, because people were incensed that it was so violent.
Yeah.
And that's worth remembering. But we got into such a universe now where anything goes. That's the danger to
But back then, why did they go back the next day, and next day, and make it a massive hit?
Curiosity.
They wanted to be exposed to that.
Well, his guys read later the outrage had to be transported into cash.
Yeah, of course. But I was fascinated with that. Like, what?
But it was an elegant pornographic horror film.
Yeah. Well, people, I think once they start talking about it, people are like, oh, you got to see this thing. You got to see this thing.
That was it.
Everybody must go and see this thing.
I think it was the talk by what do they call it, the water cooler the next day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the main things it was Ridley said when we spoke the first time was like that I shouldn't trust that the creature on its own wasn't going to be necessarily scary on its own, right? Because obviously a lot of what makes it at the beginning was the mystery of the creature. He didn't know what the creature was, but by the time Fincher gets his hands on it, that's I think what he saw. Like, but poor Fincher had to deal with it. It was not scary enough. It was scary. The creature itself.
Digital was too easy.
Exactly, and the creature, and you could see it too much, and the creature had lost some of that juice, and so there was something that we kept in mind all the time, making this one to make sure that first of all, we didn't rely only on the creature, that it was other present things for the characters apart from it, but also to reintroduce it in a kind of similar way that you don't really see what it is. In our movies, is also you don't get a glimpse of fully of the creature until later in the story. So because there's going to be, there's kids that are 12, 13, 15-year-old kids that they're not supposed to watch this movie, that will watch this movie, and it will be all new for them. It will be that all these ideas that I was lucky to be able to take from the original movie and the other movies, like suddenly it's all new. There's going to be a new generation that I know hopefully will find it and just encounter these things for the first time in their life. So we try to treat the creature the same way as the original. Never counted on it like this is gonna save the day just because it's alien, but also make sure that the way it's introduced into the movie is mysterious and scary enough that doesn't depend on the creature itself. Right?
That's the hardest thing to do.
It is the hardest thing. It is what's so brilliant about the first movie is every angle. Every moment can be shot in one way that works. All the others don't, and you keep finding the right way to show it in every moment. Which is down on the floor, or either on the wall, or behind someone. It's just very, very subtle, and you would have a lens that would be wider would have ruined it. It's just always exactly. It's all about point of view, and to know exactly where the point of view is.
The normal vision is 65 mil. It's not 50. 65, I learned this from Doug Trumbull. 65 mil, if you do that, it's when your fingers come in. It's about 65, it's not 50. So if you use a wide angle, you somehow diminish the image. So you want it for a reason. But if you want normal vision, it's about 65. So you stay on that. The camera, in essence, your eyesight. So you're already in the right mode for the person who's staring.
Do you think is the lens used the most on that movie?
Yeah, almost 65. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, the nearest thing to it. And if you're carrying the ingenue, it was heavy. So, and we discovered that ingenue, and they should know this, was focusing forwards or backwards.
Is this really where you want to spend the rest of your life?
You know I don't.
Then this is our only ticket out of here.
Can I tell you a story about Alien?
Yeah.
I'm in the office, and I think what I'm doing something else, preparing something. And somebody says, Stanley Kubrick. I said, no, Stanley Kubrick. It's Stanley Kubrick. So I think somebody's taking the mick. I said, hello, Stanley. He said, really, hi, it's Stanley Kubrick here. Stanley Kubrick. And he said, he came straight to it, not how you doing. He said, I need to ask you a question. I just look at Alien. He said, how the hell did he get that thing to come out of his chest? And I said, well, we had
I'll never tell you, you said.
No, I said, well, I had a fake chest. I pinned a T-shirt over, had a razor blade, and he said, I got it, thank you. He hung up.
Did you ever talk with him again?
Yeah. You want the next one?
Yeah.
So I'm finishing Blade Runner, and Blade Runner was a kind of disaster when it opened. And I didn't care at that point, because I knew the only critic that can be relevant to you is yourself. You have to decide what you made and what you think of it. Don't read the press. Never read your press. If it's good, it's seductive. If it's bad, it's depressing. So I never read press, and so I'd listen. I had to go to these previews because they are argued as being necessary. I want to quantify that if you want, but I won't because it could get rude. So I'm now having a bad preview. And they say, gee, it's so depressing. You might kind of end up happily ever after in that elevator and all that. I said, well, it's a film noir. And the question, what is a film noir? So I knew I was in real trouble when they didn't know what a film noir was. So he said, we will test again, and we have to find a way of doing a happy ending. Like going into the mountains or something. I said, well, why would you live in the city like that if you've got the mountain range close by? You're out of your mind. I said, don't worry, I got it. I called up Stanley, said, hey, Stanley, how you doing? He said, I'm doing, how you doing? Fine. And he said, your film really played very well. I said, so what are you doing? I said, I'm finishing a thing called Blade Runner. I said, listen, I'm going to come straight to the point because you don't like to waste time. You finished a film called The Shining. I know you do not ride in helicopters. Ever since 2001, you would not get in an aircraft because you knew too much about aircraft. What do you want? I said, well, you must have many hours of going into the mountains to that place for The Shining, don't you? He said, I've got 17 days of helicopter footage, actually. I said, can I borrow some shots? He went, for what? I said, oh, it's testing. I want to put it on the end. He said, sure. And then he said, whoa, wait a minute, this is how mind works. He said, what did you shoot? I said, I shot anamorphic. Oh, I shot spherical, won't work. Then he said, is there something in the shot? I said, it's a car. He said, well, I'm way up. He said, actually, it'll be perfect. What is shape? Because it's oblong. He said, perfect. He said, if you project spherical anamorphic, it stretches. Yeah. So all the shots at the end of Blade Runner from Stanley Kubrick from The Shining.
Brilliant.
He gave me 17 hours the next morning.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now people know that.
He's a good man. Good guy.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Yeah. Did you ever learn something talking with him, or you just learned through his movies?
I learned through his movies. I didn't dare call him up.
No, of course.
But I just learned. His movies always had a definitive centerpiece.
Yeah.
He stuck the one big idea. He stuck with that one big idea.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about.
Yeah. Paths of Glory was about, I'm going to execute all these men for not going over the top to encourage the others to go over the top. Anyone see the have you seen it?
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah.